welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. It is TJ, your host. Tonight's video topic is part of the Making of the Abusive Man from Lundy Bancroft's book, Why Does He Do That? Inside the Minds of Angry and Controlling Men. And it's the question that Bancroft asks, where did he learn to be that way? This is a pretty long section, so it's probably going to be divided among at least 2 videos. Bancroft first tells us to look at how society influences the development of a boy or of a young man's attitude towards abuse. Now, some of what he is about to describe goes back many hundreds of years, while other messages are more recent arrivals on the cultural scene. He will give examples from child-oriented culture, such as children's books and movies, and others from adult culture, which trickle down to children from the models they observe of adult behavior, and from what adults tell them directly about what's right and what is wrong. Laws and the legal system have colluded with the abuse of women. Into the 1800s, it was expressly legal for a man in the English-speaking world to physically abuse his wife. She didn't have any recourse to the police or to the courts, and if she chose to divorce him because of this abuse, he was legally entitled to custody of the kids. In the late 19th century, some legal consequences were finally legislated for some of the most extreme batterings of women, but they were rarely enforced until the 70s, and were not enforced consistently at all until the 90s. So for hundreds or maybe thousands of years, the domestic assault of ladies has been considered a necessary tool for a man to maintain order and discipline in his home, to make sure that his superior intelligence rules, and to avoid the mushrooming of the hysterical, short-sighted, and naive qualities that men widely think women have. It was with the women's movement of the 60s and 70s, and especially with the work of those activists focusing specifically on battering and sexual assault, that the intimate oppression of women began to be taken seriously as an actual crime. This legal history plays an important role in shaping today's cultural views among males, females, about the abuse of women. It's probably going to take a lot of different generations to overcome the accumulated impact of hundreds of years of destructive social attitudes. The culture that shaped these laws, and was in turn shaped by them, is reflected in people's continued willingness to blame the women for provoking the abuse, to feel sorry for men who face legal consequences for intimate violence, and to be highly skeptical of ladies who report abuse. These are all attitudes that children can absorb from the behaviors and comments of the adult people around them. Children also take notice of responses by legal system. A boy who grows up in a home where the father assaults the mother may observe over the years that the father never seems to be punished, indicating to him that the father's behavior is evidently not so bad or wrong as far as the community goes. In fact, any male who's older than 10 or 15 years old of age today is unlikely to have ever seen the father prosecuted for domestic violence, since such prosecution was uncommon before 1990. When a lady asks Bancroft, why does a physically abusive man believe he can get away with it, he has to answer that, until very recently, he could. And even now, legal consequences are less serious for men who assault partners than for those who assault strangers. The historical condoning of the physical abuse of ladies has also played a critical role in making it difficult to address and overcome emotional abuse, as it has created an atmosphere of impunity regarding men's conduct in his relationships with his partners. Religious beliefs have often condoned the abuse of women. The most influential religious scriptures in the world today, including the Bible, Torah, Quran, and major Buddhist and Hindu writings, explicitly instruct ladies to submit to male domination. Genesis, he gives an example, has the following passage.
Unto the women he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee.
Now, Bancroft says he's had numerous clients over the years who explicitly rely on such scripture quotations to justify their abuse of the partners. Similarly, religious prohibitions against divorce have entrapped women in abusive marriages. He mentions a book called When Love Goes Wrong, which was published in '85. He says it describes a study of conservative Protestant clergy that reported that 21% said that no amount of abuse would justify a woman's leaving her husband, and 26% agreed with the statement that a wife should submit to her husband and trust that God will honor her action by either stopping the abuse or giving her the strength to endure it. Kids who are raised in a faith tradition are often taught that the rules of their religion are the ultimate guide of right and wrong, superior even to civil law. A boy's early religious training can be formative in the development of his image of appropriate behaviors in intimate relationships, the status of women, and the entitlements that men get. If the more destructive aspects of his religious background are the ones that are given the most emphasis in his family or community, some dangerous seeds may have been sown. Popular performers both reflect and shape social attitudes. He then goes into a discussion about the white rapper Eminem, who won a Grammy Award while Bancroft was writing this very book. At the time of the award, one of his newest popular songs was Kim, which is the name of Eminem's wife. The song starts out with the singer putting his baby daughter to bed and then getting ready to murder the wife for being with another man. He tells the wife, "If you move, I'll beat the crap out of you," and informs her that he has already murdered their 4-year-old kid. Then he tells the wife he's going to drive away with her in the car, leaving the baby at home alone, and then will take her back home dead in the trunk. Kim's voice, which was performed by Eminem, is audible off and on throughout the song, screaming with terror. At times, she pleads with him not to hurt her. He describes to her how he's going to make it look as if she's the one who killed the son and that he killed her in self-defense so that he can get away scot-free. Kim screams for help, then is audibly choked to death as Eminem screams,
"Bleed, bitch! Bleed, bleed!"
The murder is followed by the sound of a body being dragged across dry leaves, thrown into the trunk of a car, and closed in. Even more terrifying and horrible than Eminem's decision to record this song glorifying the murder of a woman and child is the fact that it did not stop him from receiving a Grammy Award. What is a teen boy or young man to conclude about the culture from this type of situation? Bancroft believes that he can safely say that a singer who openly promoted the killing of Jews, blacks, or people in wheelchairs would be considered ineligible for a Grammy Award. Not so, unfortunately, for encouraging the brutal and premeditated murder of one's wife and child, complete with a plan for how to escape the consequences for it. And unfortunately, Eminem has plenty of company. The extremely popular Guns N' Roses recorded that song we mentioned in the previous video. "I used to love her, but then I had to kill her. I had to put her 6 feet under, and I can still hear her complain." The singer, Axl Rose, goes on to say that he knew he would miss her, so he buried her in the backyard. This tune supports the common attitude among physical abusers that ladies' complaints are what provoke the men into violence. Another outstanding example is comedian Andrew Dice Clay, whose repertoire of jokes about the beating and sexual assault of females has filled performance halls across the country. Fans of these kinds of performers have been known to state defensively,
"Come on, it's just humor."
But humor is actually one of the powerful ways a culture passes on its values. If a man's already inclined towards abuse because of his earlier training or experience, he can find validation in such performances, which allow him to distance himself even further from empathy for his partners. In one case of abuse that Bancroft dealt with, the man used to play the song we just mentioned on the stereo repeatedly and would tell the wife that this is what's going to happen to you, and laughed about it. But in the context of verbal assault and physical fear that he created, what was a joke to him was a blood-curdling threat to his partner.
In case you didn't know, I am the Narcopath.
And you ain't. So don't even try. And you know, I really don't want to hear about how heartbroken you were when you decided to become a detective and found out for certain that I was having sex with one of your good friends. Well, honey, that's your own fault. I told you. I told you, do not check up on me. Do not spy on me. Do not go looking for anything on me. And what did you do? You started snooping. The fact that your heart's broken, that ain't my problem, because you didn't follow my rules. If you would have never looked into all that stuff like the nosy mouse you are, well then you wouldn't know any of this and we'd probably be married by now. You had to go and be Mr. Sleuth and check up on me and look into things. Well, you have nobody to blame but yourself for your broken heart. Take your goddamn broken heart and eat it. Hi, sweetie. Oh, hi, I'm Sandy Hoaxtard. This is my real creature. Not sure what it is yet. She sure is sweet. Want to suckle? Suckle some milk? Ooh, I'm Sandy Hoaxtard. Welcome back to Channel 5 Fake News. Only our news is real. You think you live in a democracy? Do you, honey? Do you think you live in a democracy? Well, honey, you don't. You live in a dictatorship. You sure do. Now, of course, we're given the illusion there are two sides. There's a right and a left. But, honey, that's all for show. That is fake. The truth is, the left and the right are both puppets. There are puppeteers that none of us know who they are, and they're in charge of the whole thing. So we, the people, think we're so smart, and I'm on this side, but you're on that side, so I'm going to show you how I'm right and you're wrong, and it's going to keep us busy so we don't notice what the evil reptilian monsters are doing to everyone else's freedom. This is serious. Something needs to be done.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's got the most beautiful teeth of them all? What?